Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva Bhakti. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Vidyantasto Hibhadrani, Virunoti Suhritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, I have a reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I'll read on my phone because it's so much easier to see it. Okay. I guess I'll open this so I can move to the next
I'm
one.
not hearing what you're saying.
We're not hearing. Is this on? It's on. I was just saying, I'm going to read it from my phone. It's easier. This is chapter 2, okay. So the book has to keep up. Okay. Satyam, okay, I didn't say what one it is. This is from Canto 2, Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart, and verse 4. Satyam, Shito, Kim, Kashipo, familiar? Prayasire, Satyam, Shito, Kim, Kashipo, Prayasire,
Satyam Shito Kim Kashipo Prayasire
Baho, Swasidhe,
Swasidhe Upabarhanai
Kim Baho Swasidhe Upabarhanai Kim
Baho Swasidhe Upabarhanai Kim Sati
let's see, that's right. Angyalo Kim Purudhana Patria Satyangelo Kim Purudhana Patria
Satyangelo Kim Purudhana Patria.
Wait, Anjana, Jnana. Okay, you're right, it's Anjana because in Jnana they're in reverse order. So this is Anjana. Dig Valkalado Sati Kim Dukulai Digval Kalado Sati Kim Dukulai Satyam Shito Kim Kashipo Prayasire Baho Swasidhe Upabarhanai Kim Satyangelo Kim Purudhana Patria Digval Kalado Sati Kim Dukulai Satyam Shito Kim Kashipo Prayasire Baho Swasidhe Upabarhanai Kim Satyangelo Kim Purudhana Patria Digval Kalado Sati Kim Dukulai Satyam Shito Kim Kashipo Prayasire Baho Swasidhe Upabarhanai Kim Satyangelo Kim Purudhana Patria Digval Kalado Sati Kim Dukulai I guess that's 3 or 4.
Satyam Shitao Kim Kashipao Prayasaya Baho Swashidhi Upadanai Kim Satya Anjalaki Purudana Patria Digval Kalada Satikim Dukulai
Satyam Kistao Kim Kasipo Prayasar Baho Swasidhe Upabarhanai Kim Satyangelo Kim Purudhana Digvakalado Satikim Dukalaya.
Digvakaladu Sittim Kim Dakalai.
Get the microphone all mixed up. Who else? Anybody else? Ladies? Anybody? Silence. Okay. Satyam,
Satyam,
being in possession.
being in possession.
Kshito,
Jito,
earthly flats.
earthly flats.
Kim,
Kim,
where is the necessity?
where is the necessity?
Kashipo, what do
Kashipo,
you think? Sound familiar? Of beds and cots.
of beds and cots.
Yeah, beds and cots. Prayasai,
Parasai,
endeavoring for.
endeavoring for.
Baho,
Baho,
the arms.
the arms.
Swaside,
Swaside,
being self-sufficient.
being self-sufficient.
He,
He,
certainly.
certainly.
Upabarhanai,
Upabarhanai,
bed and bedstead.
bed and bedstead.
Kim,
Kim,
what is the use?
what is the use?
Sati,
Sati,
being present.
being present.
Angelo,
Angelo,
palms of the hands.
the palms of the hands.
Kim,
Kim,
what is the use?
what is the use?
Karudha,
Varudha,
varieties of.
varieties of.
Anna,
Anna,
eatables.
eatables.
Patria,
Patriya,
by the utensils.
by the utensils.
Dik,
Dik,
open space.
open space.
Volkala ado,
Vokalado,
skins of trees.
skins of trees.
Sati,
Sati,
being existent.
being existent.
Kim,
Kim,
what is the use of?
what is the use of?
Dukulai,
The kulai,
clothes.
clothes.
What is the use of clothes? Okay. So, when skins of trees, I was going to look up for this last night. This one thing I didn't do. I was going to look up, see if I could find any information on wearing tree bark. I didn't do it.
We found something.
I didn't bring it. There's a palm tree here that's shedding shreds of bark or sections or something, and there's a section about this big that's like woven. It's actually woven of fibers, and you can pull it, stretch it like you could cloth, pull it like this.
I brought it.
Yeah, you brought it?
Yeah, it's in the corridor.
Oh, it's in the car. But
So you don't have to go to Walmart.
we don't have to.
No.
You have to become very.
You have
You have
to,
to be very clever stitching it together.
you have to
It's all
stitch
this
them.
big.
It's little panels you can make it.
Yeah. So I don't know what kind of trees they use, but anyway, there was one tree that had actual something like cloth, but in small sections. Okay. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
When there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering, or the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? So please repeat. When there are ample earthly flats to lie on,
When there are ample earthly flats to lie on,
what is the necessity of cots and beds?
what is the necessity of cots and beds?
When one can use his own arms,
When one can use his own arms,
what is the necessity of a pillow?
what is the necessity of a pillow?
When one can use the palms of his hands,
When one can use the palms of his hands,
what is the necessity of varieties of utensils?
what is the necessity of varieties of utensils?
When there is ample covering,
When there is ample covering,
or the skins of trees,
or the skins of trees,
what is the necessity of clothing?
what is the necessity of clothing?
Someone else took the next one. Oh, I was thinking about the very next verse. I was going to say, where does he say? But it's in the very next verse. Okay, so, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The necessities of life for the protection and comfort of the body must not be unnecessarily increased. Human energy is spoiled in a vain search after such illusory happiness. If one is able to lie down on the floor, then why should one endeavor to get a good bedstead or a soft cushion to lie on? If one can rest without any pillow and make use of the soft arms endowed by nature, there is no necessity of searching after a pillow. If we make a study of the general life of the animals, we can see that they have no intelligence for building big houses, furniture, and other household paraphernalia and yet they maintain a healthy life by lying down in the open land. They do not know how to cook or prepare foodstuff, yet they still live healthy lives more easily than the human being. This does not mean that human civilization should revert to animal life, or that the human being should live naked in the jungles without any culture, education, and sense of morality. An intelligent human cannot live the life of an animal. Rather, man should try to utilize his intelligence in arts and science, poetry, and philosophy. In such a way, he can further the progressive march of human civilization. But here the idea given by Srila Shukadeva Goswami is that the reserve energy of human life, which is far superior to that of animals, should simply be utilized for self-realization. Advancement of human civilization must be towards the goal of establishing a lost relationship with God, which is not possible in any form of life other than the human. One must realize the nullity of the material phenomenon, considering it a passing phantasmagoria, and must endeavor to make a solution to the miseries of life. Self-complacence with a polished type of animal civilization geared to sense gratification is delusion, and such a, quote, civilization, unquote, is not worthy of the name. In pursuit of such false activities, a human being is in the clutches of Maya or illusion. Great sages and saints in the days of yore were not living in palatial buildings, furnished with good furniture and so-called amenities of life. They used to live in huts and groves and sit on the flat ground, and yet they have left immense treasures of high knowledge with all perfection. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami were high-ranking ministers of state, but they were able to leave behind them immense writings on transcendental knowledge, while residing only for one night underneath one tree. They did not live even 2 nights under the same tree, and what to speak of well-furnished rooms with modern amenities. And still, they were able to give us most important literatures of self-realization. So-called comforts of life are not actually helpful for progressive civilization. Rather, they are detrimental to such progressive life. In the system of Sanatana Dharma, of 4 divisions of social life and 4 orders of progressive realization, there are ample opportunities and sufficient directions for a happy termination of the progressive life, and the sincere followers are advised therein to accept a voluntary life of renunciation in order to achieve the desired goal of life. If one is not accustomed to abiding by the life of renunciation and self-abnegation from the beginning, one should try to get into the habit at a later stage of life, as recommended by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, and that will help one to achieve the desired success. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and the spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, first off, there seems to be a little contradiction, because on the one hand, Shukadeva Goswami is recommending such austerity that the external lifestyle isn't really different from the animals. And as far as how you lie down, how you eat, and so on. And yet, Prabhupada says we can't live like an animal naked in the jungle without culture. And so it seems like a contradiction. The way to resolve the contradiction, because it's both in the same purport, but the way to understand it is by the surrender method, Sharanagati. The 6 steps of surrender, of which the first 2 are accept what is favorable to pure devotional service and reject what is unfavorable to pure devotional service. So it may take a lifetime of analyzing things and trial and error and everything to get your life simplified this way, but if you find that some kind of austerity is just so austere that you can't do, it's not conducive to pure devotional service, such as if you decided to live under a tree and you got eaten by bugs and you were like so miserable and felt like such a dirty old animal and everything that you can't think of Krishna, well then obviously that's not conducive for you to pure devotional service. So you don't accept that idea in your life that you have to live under a tree if you can't do it. And I would imagine that their trees and our trees are not exactly the same, because in India a long culture of cultivating forests as well as villages and arts and philosophy and all that. They possibly had nicer trees to live under. I mean, we have like bushy trees and that sort of thing. And so if you just go to the forest here, it's, you know, bushes and swamps here, so even the forest isn't the same. So, and then also suppose you have a very comfortable place and you find yourself enjoying the comfort too much. You can analyze yourself and say, well, you know, this is not actually helping me to do pure devotional service. So then you start simplifying. So we have, is mentioning the Varnashram system here, and we have 4 ashrams. And if one is in one's whole life in the Varnashram system, then one gets 25 years in the Brahmacharya. Well, the first 5 years you're not in the Guru's Gurukula. But from 5 years to 25 years, the standard amount of time is 20 years, you get to practice austerity. And from childhood to not that you have to sleep under a tree and get bug bit, but in the huts, like, and sleeping on the floor. And learning how to take cold showers and sleep on the hard floor, and, you know, use your arm for a pillow maybe, or somehow the simplest things. Prabhupada said, children like austerity, it's an adventure. I liked camping when I was little. We used to go out, we had a lot of, you know, countryside around. We had a woods. It wasn't a Mississippi woods, it was Michigan woods. It was a little nicer because here you got more poisonous snakes and things. But fire ants didn't have that in Michigan. And so we kids would go out, we'd take our sleeping bags and sleep under a tree or under the stars. We'd wake up all shivery would do, but it was an adventure. And we liked doing it from time to time. So children like that kind of thing, like austerity, and they can be trained. And so to learn spiritual life in a situation of the right kind of austerity, not too much, but the right amount of austerity, is good for a person. It's conducive to pure devotional service. And then, of course, we have the Grihastha stage, which is expanding. It's a license for some sense gratification. Then you have to analyze things a little different. Am I getting too luxurious, or do I need some comfort so that I can function? You know, you have to analyze things that way. And then again, you go back into and suppose you missed the Brahmacharya stage in your life because you joined late, and you said, well, I mean, even joining late, you were supposed to be in an ashram and get trained up. So you have some experience of this kind of austerity, supposedly. But then maybe get married and have a regular Western house or something, and then people come back, kind of. People start wanting some simplicity again. Or anyway, the Vanaprastha ashram is there for that reason. And you can, again, like, simplify your possessions, simplify your lifestyle, see what you need, don't need. And of course, sannyasi you're doing without. But a sannyasi who can't sleep on the hard floor that hurts his bones, and that's too much austerity. Still, you have to use, if you can sleep on the floor. Well, if you can't because it hurts your bones, then you have a little covering, a little mat or something, cushion. But you search for the right amount of austerity that fosters your spiritual life. And so it reminds me of, it's not spiritual, but the Japanese farmer Fukuoka, I forget his first name, whose last name is Fukuoka, and he wrote the book One Straw Revolution. He spent his life dedicated to figuring out what people don't have to do. So he made a lot of experiences. He was a plant scientist too. He wasn't just anybody. He had studied he was some degree in plant diseases. So he knew how to analyze plants. So he started helping on his father's vast farm. And one of the first things he did was kill 300 fruit trees by not continuing to prune them. They had grown dependent on pruning. He discovered that if you're not going to prune fruit trees, don't ever prune them. Because then if you do that, if you don't prune them after that, they'll make up for that and they'll tangle up and get diseases because they're too close. They'll grow in the wrong places to make up for the pruning. But if you don't prune them, they grow naturally shaped trees, just very tall. So he experimented with what we don't need in order that we can still grow rice. Do we need this plowing? Do we need this? Do we need that? We need the fertilizers. He experimented in so many ways to get it simple. He was a scientist that way. So he was experimenting. So we all have to be scientists in the science of spiritual life. And we have to analyze, try to figure out what we don't really need and how to be more simple so that we can clear the way to think more about Krishna. So that's what this is. Let's see. I think I said all the things. What would this be? Said all my ideas already. If you practice, I thought of more things. Yes, I remember more things. That if you analyze things one at a time and see what you can reduce, and that can be a lifetime's effort to work through like that. So I was thinking also about my brahmacharya phase, brahmacharini phase, when I joined the movement, because I was 34 when I joined. But still, I had some period of time where I lived in an ashram, the brahmacharya way of life. It was pretty simple. I did have some furniture, but not very much. And more than I really wanted, actually, it turned out. But simple life. And actually, this is the interesting thing I was going to share. When I first met my first guru, I brought my paintings. I had my mundane paintings to show that I could paint. And I had an idea. I was actually auditioning for a job in the service of the BBT art department. So I thought, oh, here he'll say, oh, another artist, yes, come to LA. And he shocked me. He said, don't paint for 2 years. I'm talking about this because Yogendra also brought that I told him, and he told everybody. So I was told, don't paint for 2 years. And I was shocked. But you know what? I was impressed. Because I thought, he knows. Because I knew that art is a struggle with sense gratification. It's just not the same kind of sense gratification that other people are looking at. Because if you have an art form that you're into, it takes a lot of sense involvement. It takes a lot of sense gratification, in a sense, to know what's good and what's not good in the art. So your senses are very involved. And if it's mundane art, it's mundane sense gratification. And yet Prabhupada says we have to have the arts and the science and the poetry and literature like that. We have to have that. We're civilizations. Humans cannot live like animals and just not. It's too much suffering. The senses require engagement. The human body has certain kind of senses that animals don't have. The human body, the senses, require engagement. That's why we have Yukta Vairagya, engaging in Krishna's service. And so I knew the struggle of, even before I knew the philosophy very well, I knew that having an art talent was a struggle with sense gratification. I knew it, And so I was very impressed when he said that. So I had 2 years. I got confused by the time, but it was what I thought was 2 years. I didn't do any artwork. I was just a regular brahmacharini, did my Sankirtan and went to the morning program and that stuff, and just didn't think about artwork. And it was a wonderful experience. It was wonderful. And so when I went back to doing some artwork, I was a little bit ahead in understanding how to engage in Krishna service, because I had that philosophy and that experience down. And so still, it's been a lifetime. Like only recently, and I was trying to think what corner I turned. I can't remember what it was exactly, or maybe it was gradual, but I seem to have got to a certain sort of peace about it that really it's only for Krishna. Because I had before gone back and forth. Sometimes I want to paint something of nature. Sometimes I want to paint a flower or a landscape or something. And I go back and then feel disgusted with myself. But other people can't say, they say, oh, it's just a good painting, what's wrong? But I knew, So I was struggling with it, tried to sort out that which is to be kept because it's for Krishna, and that which is to be rejected because it does not help pure devotional service. So that's the art of living. In fact, Krishna called it, what he said, the art of work in the second canto. It's talking about bhakti yoga or what he was saying first, Buddha yoga, the art of all work. It's in the middle of he's finding it. You can see this one. And it is an art. It's an art to figure out how to organize your life so that it supports pure devotional service. even within it are different arts. So a human being has to have arts and science and philosophy and literature and stuff, poetry. The human form of life has to have these things, but we have to have them only in such a way that they support our pure devotional service. And we have been trained up in the West anyway with all these things that support mundane enjoyment. So we have to sort that all out. Try not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We can't be too austere and have nothing. Did you find it?
Bhagavad Gita 250.
Can you read it, please? 250, okay.
A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work.
Okay, so we have what we call good and bad actions is karma that we like and karma that we don't like. So we may get real good at our art form and like it materially. It doesn't get us closer to Krishna. So that kind of happiness is, when a devotee knows what real happiness is, that kind of happiness is lesser. And you can be tangled up in it just because it's more to goodness. And the devotees won't tell you, don't do that. Because they say, oh, that's nice, it's because it's more to goodness anyway or something, So inwards you have to sort it all out. It's the personal task that one has to do. It's like flying your own airplane. You have to learn how to do that. You know when your senses are engaged in Krishna consciousness and when your senses are engaged in pleasing yourself. You can tell. So that's what, and it's a symbol that, in this case, Parikshit Maharaj is at the end of his life, even though he's not old yet. He knows he's going to die in 7 days, so he's renounced everything to go sit in the river. He has nothing else. So Shukadeva Goswami is encouraging him in that life, even though it's only 7 days. You don't need anything. You don't need anything. So he's encouraging that. Shukadeva Goswami is able to live that simply because all the richness of his human form of life is within him, thinking about Krishna. But we have to do this life in such a way that everything we do supports Krishna. Not just try to do this false renunciation of externally imitating somebody like Shukadeva Goswami and then finding ourselves resentful that the bugs are biting us and that's all we're getting out of it. So, that's the challenge. Any comments or questions?
It was a question that Talavana's asking.
Oh, okay. Well,
and it's not with the class, it's just they want to know about Kasi. Is it tomorrow or Thursday?
Thursday.
Oh, it's Thursday.
How do I his hand went up?
It was interesting your realization about the difference between the forests here and possibly in India, because in that book that we have by Ranchod Khan, I forget, Vedic Ecology, is that it?
Yeah.
It talks about the Madhava-priya, the great forest in India that was actually cultivated and maintained for
Not the Madhava-priya, but
not the Madhava-priya, but the Madhava-priya was more the wild forest.
yeah. They had,
but some, I forget the term that they use, but a cultivated, maintained forest that supplies wood and herbs and fruits and flowers and what an amazing foreign concept, to most people. But there's forests there that obviously that have been maintained for hundreds and maybe even thousands of years. So that would be almost like someone's garden, possibly, to go and take shelter and rest there. Just that whole that's real an intriguing kind of concept.
And they would have, there was 3 forests. There was the forest, the productive forest, and there was the forest for the sages to live in and the renunciates to live in. And when you get old, you go join them. You get a hut in that forest, and it's protected by the king from wild animals. But the wild animals aren't bothered in the Madhava-priya. This is what that book said. So,
Is that like the principles of the permaculture?
It relates closely. Yeah, it's amazing you see permaculture in it. It doesn't give a whole lot of detail about that because it's a little bit different angle of vision, but it's not Vedic ecology. That's a term that our friend here was using when he wanted us to preach that way. Our friend, who doesn't live here, Who isn't here, but, his topics. The book was Hinduism and
Oh, yeah.
Ecology and Hinduism, Hinduism and Ecology, something like that.
It's
Rancho
really
Punch?
interesting though, that book.
Yes, very interesting.
What was the name of that book?
Hinduism and Ecology, I believe, or Ecology and Hinduism.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
I had a copy and then I got another copy. It's on Madhava-priya.
By Ranchor Prime.
Ranchor,
Yeah.
and then Prime, Prime.
Do you find the name of the book?
I think it is
Is it-
Hinduism
are you looking at them?
ecology, isn't
Are you looking at the name of the book?
Not yet.
Oh.
He's written a lot. He's a British author. Yeah.
Is there anything else? Okay. I think we're finished then. Thank you all very much. All goes to show Prabhupada, all goes to show.
Thank you very much.
it? So much coming in from the garden.